Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are. I would like to welcome all of you to the second episode of a very special series on the mechanics of mediumship. Over the course of this series, we'll explore the intricate workings of mediumship, a subject that has fascinated many people, including myself, for centuries, but often remains shrouded in mystery. So, to guide us on this journey, I am thrilled to be joined by Luiz Lima, a seasoned expert in spiritism in general, and of course, mediumship in particular. In today's episode, Luiz will follow the first program, which focused at the time on the foundational principles of mediumship, what it is, how it works, and why it's such a powerful tool for connecting with the unseen realms. And if you haven't seen it, it's a must. Please do go back to search for part 1 of the series. But we are on the second program, which will now focus on the medium. And I have to tell you, if you are new to the subject or maybe have been curious for many years, this series on the mechanics of mediumship will shed light on the nature of spiritual communication and the profound impact it can have on our understanding of the universe. So let's dive in as we continue to unravel the mechanics of mediumship with you, Luis Lima. For those of you who may not have met Luis before, please allow me to introduce him to you. Luiz Lima was born in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil in 1990. He moved to the, sorry, I'm sorry, you were not born in 1999.
It would be nice.
I second you there. I want to be born in 1999. But in 1999, he came to the US where he came in contact with Spiritism. He is an avid reader and a student of Spiritism, but he also has been doing a great service, which is to be able to lecture on Spiritism in both languages, Portuguese and English. And he's been doing this for several years. Today, Luis is a member of the Kardec Spiritist Renovation Spiritist Center in Coconut Creek, Florida. He holds a bachelor's degree in engineering and currently works in the computer network industry. Thank you so much for being here, Louise. Let us get you ready to get started.
Okay. Thank you, Marcia. Yeah, program number 2. It's like you said, it's a challenging subject for all of us, myself included. So let me just coming back here to the first program. We're not going to redo it, of course, but we did focus at the time on the phenomena itself. Like how it happens and stuff like that. Today, we are going to focus more on the medium. When you talk about the medium, obviously we assume here that we got past the medium's book. That's where most of the information for mediums are. What the purpose is here on this program too is the participation of the medium in the phenomena. Everything else about the medium, it really belongs in the medium's book. So let's go ahead. We did present this image here. It's exactly the same image, which at the time we explained in details how information is transmitted from the discarnate spirit to a medium, and that's what mediumship is. So if you haven't seen the first program, I really encourage you to go back and take a look at it. So we did present this picture, and today our focus is not on what's on the screen in terms of how did it happen. No. The focus today is here on the mental waves. Mental waves are the waves that are transmitted from the discarnate spirit into the medium. It's like the content of the medium. For example, think of a in the old days, television through regular antennas, or still today, radio, for example. So radio, when you tune into a radio station, let's just say 100.5, okay? So when you tune in there, you're tuning into the content. If there were no content, you would just hear a standard immutable frequency of 105, something like this. That's not what you hear when you tune into a station. There is content within the wave that runs at that frequency. Same for Wi-Fi on your phone. Sometimes you connect to a 2.4 gigahertz network, sometimes 5 gigahertz network. It's not that you're constantly transmitting and receiving that frequency. No, you are receiving and transmitting the content that runs on that frequency. It's the same thing here. So the mental waves here in the process, they represent the content within the process. What content is this discarnate spirit sending over to the other side where the medium is? How does the medium receive this thing? That's what we are focusing today on, transmission of the content. And most interestingly, how is that received on the medium's side? Last week, we went into the medium's brain. Let's say we did dive into the medium's brain, explaining how all the information was passed in and worked on inside his head through the brain, which we call mental flow. But that's biology. That's what we did last time. Today, we are not going to look into what you see on the screen here on the right side, the mental flow and the neurons and everything. No, that we did last week. Today, we are going to focus on the waves that come in, the waves that are captured by the medium. And that is captured through the medium's pineal gland. So, again, mental waves, we're talking about the content. How does that get into the medium's head? Well, one thing is, mental waves, they're not allowed in or not. They're based solely on the medium's discretion. The medium allows it in or not, because waves are everywhere. We are, surrounded by waves of all sorts, including mental waves. Not only waves in a material plane, radio waves, cell phone waves, not only those, but also mental waves coming from the spirit world. And all of them will get to us, all of them. So how do we allow certain waves to get in and certain other waves not? So it is based solely on the medium's discretion, nothing else. The medium is the one deciding. For example, if you want to watch TV, the TV does not decide for you what channel you're going to watch. You decide and you change as needed, as you like. So it's the same thing here. The medium is the one who filters out unwanted mental waves. So the medium itself has to, first of all, get to a point where he successfully manages that. He knows how to handle that. And that doesn't happen in 5 minutes. It happens as you go, as the medium goes along and learns through a long process of a lot of trial and error, learning and putting all his attention and concentration. Because if he doesn't do that, he's going to be receiving good waves with good stuff, and he's going to be receiving bad mental waves with bad stuff, which will turn out to, be very challenging for him now as a physical person. So it is the medium who creates the filter. So he has to learn how to do that. And it takes time. In the first days of when you start in the mediumship process, you're learning first days in a spiritist center, let's say, it's complicated because the medium, I'm going to use the word suffer, but in quotes. So the medium might suffer a lot because he's receiving all these things and he's kind of, wow, that's too much for me. What do I do here? He has to learn. Okay. So again, the medium is the one who decides what comes in and what does not. So from the medium's point of view, there are three things that are critical for the receiving of mental waves. First is the affinity with the incoming wave. You see, we're not talking, not as yet, we're not talking affinity with the discarnate spirit. That will be later. We're talking about affinity with the mental wave, meaning I don't want this. I have no affinity with this particular content that's coming in from the spirit world. But I do have some connection, if you will, with this. There is some chemistry, as we say, for like two artists on a movie. There has to be chemistry between the medium and the wave that comes in. If there is no affinity, nothing is going to happen. So with time, the discarnate spirit that produces waves that have affinity with the medium, they will start like on a relationship, if you will, to the point that it's going to become very comfortable for both, for the discarnate spirit and for the medium to be talking all the time because affinity. So affinity is something that with time gets better. It has to be kind of developed for this better collaboration between the two, medium and the discarnate spirit. So affinity is one of the things. The second thing that we need to consider here is the medium's mental state. Mental state means the state of mind. The state of mind can be very, and it is actually very dynamic for all of us. For all of us. Sometimes you're feeling good, sometimes you're not. Sometimes you might be a little angry with something. The other day you're really feeling great. It's just part of life because of the stage that we are in terms of evolution. So our state of mind is very dynamic. It goes up and down all the time. Same for the medium, which is an incarnate spirit, just like you and me. However, with training, with more participation in mediumistic meetings and sessions, the medium will start concentrating more and more and more each time, to the point where when he goes in for the mediumship, or even after and before, his mental state is going to be less of a ripple. It's going to be more stable around a certain type of mindset. That's why in the beginning, it's very difficult for the medium to just plug in, lock minds and start receiving mental waves. It's very complicated. It's all part of a learning process. So the affinity and the mental state require a lot of, I'm going to use the expression trial and error, which could be at times very frustrating for the medium in the beginning of his attempt to be a real medium all the time, stable, and so. There's a third thing that we need to consider here, which Andre Luiz, in the book, The Mechanics of Mediumship, he calls the reflexes. We need to expand on this a little bit. What are these reflexes? These reflexes is what's going to generate the mental state and allow for affinity. So it runs at the base of all of this. What is this reflex or reflexes? Well, what exactly does André Luiz mean by this? So, for an incarnate spirit, for you, for me, any one of us, doesn't have to be a medium, okay? So, for all of us, there are two types of reflexes, how we react to the world. The first one is called unconditioned reflex or congenital. So the name kind of says it. It's something that comes with us when we are born. It's part of our DNA. It's just there. What are the examples of this? So first of all, congenital or unconditioned reflexes do not use our cortex, which is the front part of the brain that creates things. That's the imagination part, the creative part of the brain. Congenital reflexes do not need the cortex. So you don't have to be creative. You don't have to be a genius on anything to have that kind of reflexes. Here are some examples. Self-protection, the idea that I have to protect myself. So I hear, for example, I hear shots in the air. Well, I'm going to run and hide somewhere and protect myself. Nobody has to tell me that I need to do this. It's just going to happen. It's almost like intuition. Let me run somewhere and protect myself. Same for safety. I'm going to avoid places where I can be, subject to harm by other people and stuff like that. It's just within us. Here are more examples. Feeding, nutrition. I don't have to have cortex to eat, to find out it's time to eat. This is our animal part. So I need to have food. I need to eat. Here's another one. Posture. We just have, we just use our 2 feet to stand up, and that's it. That's enough. Nobody needs to tell me that I need to stand up on 2 feet, not 4, for example, as animals. It is just part of us. And here's a last not least example, sexual engagement. So all these things are unconditioned reflexes. Unconditioned. They do not depend on a condition. Meaning, I will eat, the nutrition part. I will eat if this. No. I will stand up on my 2 feet if this happens. It isn't like this. It just happens. Those are examples, and those are called congenital or unconditioned reflexes. Remember, we're talking about anyone, not a medium, not yet. There are a second group of reflexes, which we call conditioned reflexes, also called acquired reflexes. So look at the difference. One is congenital, it comes with us. The other is acquired. So they will be acquired as we go along, as we go living our lives. Here's some examples. So first of all, they require the cortex because you need to think, you need to create, you need to imagine. So they do require and use the cortex. On what we are going to acquire, these reflexes that we are going to acquire, they are learned behaviors. Now, these learned behaviors and everything that you see here as conditioned or acquired reflexes, they run on top of the congenital. Nobody has acquired reflexes only and not congenital. No, everyone has congenital. And then on top of those, we acquire more reflexes. So they are called acquired or conditioned reflexes. They are learned behavior. And they result from the stimuli, with our relation to the environment and to people. We create habits. We create habits. We condition reflexes, creating habits because of our interaction with the environment, with other people. And here's a more interesting thing. These conditioned reflexes, they define our preferences. For example, if you look on the top, unconditioned reflexes, I have to eat. Okay, that's natural. Everybody feels the need to eat. However, I can decide I'm going to eat a fruit, or I'm going to eat a piece of meat. So this is not congenital anymore because it's my preference. What is congenital is the need for food. But on top of the need for food, I define my preferences. So acquired reflexes, conditioned reflexes, define our preferences. So this is us. Now, Andrea Luiz tells us about this because he says, the same way we have conditioned reflexes that we are talking about here, we also have conditioned psychic reflexes. So prior slide, we were talking about things in the physical world, behaviors that we learn and eating and stuff like that. Now we're going to talk about psychic reflexes, which are all conditioned because they are learned behavior. Now, who learns the behavior? It's not the body, it's the spirit. So a few things about this. All of these psychic reflexes, all of them, no exception, they are governed and guided by induction. We're going to come back to induction. So induction means we are induced to. That's what we're going to say for now. We're going to come back to this shortly. So all of them are guided by induction, meaning something comes from the spirit world and induces us to do something. These reflexes, that's very interesting. These reflexes, which ones? Conditioned psychic reflexes. They cause the spirit's mental life to expand. Because I receive all these mental waves, all these influences, all these inductions. So I'm being submitted to more experiences, or at least I'm having the opportunity to be submitted to more experiences. So that will expand my mental life. That's interesting, very interesting. Now here because it's a conditioned reflex, although psychic, but it's a conditioned reflex, it expresses my privileges. Remember, conditioned reflexes define my privileges. So that's what my moral behavior. It's something that I choose. I choose how to be. My intellectual level, it's what I choose. It's not a divine decree. It's not on my DNA. No. It's something that we define. It's the privilege of choice. That means the mind can be trained because these reflexes cause mental life the spirit's mental life to expand, so the mind can be trained using psychic reflexes. And you can train a mind to do good things or bad things. So an interesting point here to bring up is brainwash is a type of mind being trained. You can brainwash somebody. You pound the same message, the same thing all the time. You can brainwash somebody. So brainwash is possible because of conditioned psychic reflexes. And how is it done? Every time we think, we produce what we call the thought form. Thought form is an image, a picture in the spirit world of what I'm thinking. When I think of something, the people around me don't know what I'm thinking. But the entire spirit world does. Because when I think, I actually draw in the spirit world the image what I'm thinking. So Brainwashed, being brainwashed means I've been through a process where my thought forms were targeted. It's like being hacked at the spirit level. So my thought forms were being produced by another mind that insists in doing this and this and this and this, and it became a habit, a psychic habit. That's very powerful, very powerful. That's how we see a lot of people, especially in the cases of obsession, for example. Uh, the person doesn't have to be a medium, by the way. The person is bounded with that, go kill yourself, go kill yourself, go kill yourself. One day the person goes and does. So brainwash is possible. It's a reality. We know that. And also the mental waves that come into that arrive into us or the mediums, right? They are emitted by another spirit that we are attuned to. We are attuned. That's the affinity. If we don't have the affinity with a certain type of mental wave, they will not create any reflex. They will not shape our mind. They will not create habits because simply there's no affinity. It's a mental wave that's going to come by and go, and I don't even care about it. So what we're saying here on this slide is this is for everyone. Now, if you are a medium, that becomes even more serious because you're easily more susceptible to all these influences. So the induction that we see here, which I'm going to talk about now, if the person is a medium, the induction is going to really make its way into the medium's head or mind. So the induction happens because we have certain types of thoughts. The thoughts that we have will respond to the same type of wave. So if I'm thinking, for example, of, I don't know, just I'm angry because somebody did this, and I sustain that anger, and I can't let it go. And every day, oh, I'm angry because that person did this. Next day, I'm angry because that person did this. So we are sustaining this. So our thoughts is that what kind of mental wave is going to come in? The same wave that I'm throwing out. It's a two-way street. Nothing is one-way street here. So because we share the mental atmosphere with one another, whatever I put out is what I'm going to be subject to receive. That's induction. That's the induction. I'm going to be induced by the type of wave that I generate. And also, we are automatically connected to all the other spirits. We live, as spirits, we are all together here, incarnates and discarnates. So the minute we think something, we are automatically connected to all other spirits who think the same thing, who are tuned to that mental wave, to that kind of content. So watching TV, things like this become very important because these things are what we call the induction agents. Induction agents are things that trigger a thought which will generate induction. For example, a conversation. It's an induction agent. You might be talking to somebody, and it's pleasant talk. You're talking about good things, things you do together, things you have affinity with. So the spirits around, discarnate spirits around, they will be those who attune to that conversation. So if we're talking bad things about people that we know, and that's what we are going to get in our induction, the mental waves that are induced towards us. For example, the choice of materials that we read, choice of music and art forms, choice of TV programs, it all matters. Because if I like a certain type of TV program, that's what I'm putting out, and that's what I'm gonna receive. So this thing could become a snowball if we sustain. Because I sustain, let's just say, watching TV programs with bad stuff. That's my wave goes out. My mental wave goes out. All the mental waves of all those spirits who share the same thing, send it back to me. So now I generated one wave and received, let's just say 100. So now I had 101 waves in my head, which makes me even worse than before. Then the intensity of my mental wave rises. And then instead of 100 now, then I got 200, and then it goes in a snowball process. So if we read good content, if music that we listen is nice music, saying nice things, the TV programs that we see, the forms of arts that we contemplate, all of these things are induction agents. And here's another one: receiving a visit from somebody or visiting somebody. That somebody, you're going to engage in a conversation. So there's going to be a mix of both mental waves. If it's a person that, it's someone that attunes to you, it's going to generate the snowball effect. So be careful who you go with. And also, here's another induction agent: somebody's opinion, somebody's advice. Somebody's opinion can be something that they say about you. It doesn't matter if it's true or not, but they say about you and you don't like it. So now you don't like that. You're going to throw back out to them the same type of way, which is going to have them send back to you again at a higher intensity, and then it goes like this. So we go into this, eternal, infinite loop. So this is what induction is. The mental waves that come toward me are the same things that I put out through my thoughts. And then there's discernment, and that's the filter. How do I filter out? Well, first of all, I have free will to filter out anything. So interesting to say, how do we filter something? If you think of the word filter, it means something is going to be blocked, partially or no, but that's a general idea or of a filter. Something is going to come in, I'm going to put a filter because I don't want to receive it. In spirit, you don't put something to block. The way you block it is just don't throw that out. If you throw that out through your thought, that's what you get in. So your filter is at the source, not as the recipient. Again, we have free will. It's up to us to filter, to know how to filter, because all the mental currents are here, all of them. We have these million mental currents around us. So we participate with them in the mental atmosphere of where we are. And another thing, if I need to filter out something is good, something is bad, how do I know what's good and bad? How do I know what's right and wrong? You see, for me to say that something is right or wrong, I have to first establish a reference or use a reference that has already been established. So, for example, if I say to you right now, people using gray shirts are nice people. Everybody else is not. And tomorrow, I put a yellow shirt. I'm going to have to change my reference then, which doesn't make sense, because for me to say right or wrong, bad, good or evil, anything like this, I need to establish the reference. So how do we, especially the medium, which is on the focus here, how do we know what's good and bad? How do we know what is right or wrong? Where is my reference? The reference, or our moral of reference, was brought to us by Jesus. In the book, we're going to go through this, further down the road here. There's a whole chapter on the book about this. So Jesus gave us the moral of reference. So if the medium looks at the reference and it says, oh, I got to love my neighbor, but I don't want to do that. Okay, free will. Now, that's bad discernment, and we know what's going to happen. Because now, what kind of mental waves am I putting out? Right? Not good stuff. And that's what's going to come in. And I'm going to have to deal with that. And not necessarily it's an easy task. Sometimes it's very complicated. Now, coming back here to our initial diagram, we're talking about the medium. Remember that. So, the medium, when we analyze the medium, there are a few things more we need to consider. For this to work, for the mediumship to work, the medium has to have a certain degree of concentration. In the beginning, it's hard to get to that minimum, I would say, degree of concentration. As the medium practices and studies and all of that, it will be easier to achieve this degree of concentration that allows him to be part of a mediumistic session, mediumistic conversation. Another thing is the degree of passiveness of the medium. The transmission of the information from the discarnate spirit to the medium is going to be more or less accurate depending on the degree of passiveness of the medium. The more passive the medium is, the more copy and paste the information is. Copying from the discarnate spirit, pasting into the medium. If the degree of passiveness of the medium is not great, and it isn't in the beginning, the information gets fragmented, he loses connection, has to start again. It's all part of a process. Mediumship has to be, trained. And the third thing here is the degree of automation. Once the medium gets to a good degree of concentration, and that improves every time, it's improving every time. It gets to a nice degree of passiveness. Again, it increases with time. You will be, this medium is going to reach a point where to establish a mediumistic conversation, he doesn't have to do any effort because the process is automated. The degree of automation, it became such a habit for him that at this point is almost like, you can't say it is, but it's almost like a congenital or unconditioned reflex. It's so automated. So mediums such as Chico Xavier in Brazil, there are some others throughout the world, not a lot of them. Their degree of automation is very high. It's almost like they snap their fingers. I'm ready for the mediumistic conversation. Again, it takes time, a lot of study. So let's bring some final ideas here so we can conclude today's program. The emission of mental waves. Who emits the mental waves? The discarnate spirit. So it comes from them into the medium. The emission of mental waves originates in the thoughts. So the thought, the medium, the discarnate spirit's thought, or thoughts, is what generates that mental wave that will cross over the process and go to the medium. So the mental, it's like using modern language, if you will. For example, if you have internet at home, let's say, so you have an internet provider that puts a little device in your house. That device is called a modem. So let's say your provider puts a modem in your house. Now you have internet. What happens? That modem is connected to a wire that goes over the city, crosses over, and goes to the location where your internet provider is located. So there's a physical connection that goes from your modem in your house to their modem on their service site. So there are two modems here. The modem in a mediumistic transmission is the thought. Thought is what transmits the mental waves. Now, each individual generates their own magnetic fields. So each individual, in that sense, for that matter, is a magnet. So I'm a magnet, you are a magnet, more or less intense. That's why Allan Kardec says we are all mediums, but some are really, more mediums in terms of how easily they can participate in the process. Others don't feel it at all. They're more like, some are in the middle, more like sensitives, but we are all potentially a magnet. And you see, what the medium does, he can sustain the mediumistic conversation, let's just use this term. He can sustain, it's a back and forth thing. If you are not a medium, for those who are not a medium, we are still a magnet. We still receive mental waves. We just cannot transmit, maybe, and sustain a conversation because there's no affinity with the discarnate spirit, but we all receive these waves. So these magnetic fields, they attract other spirits' magnetic fields. They are attuned. And this is independent of distance, physical distance. So it's going to be, for example, a spirit in a discarnate spirit that reads my mental waves. That are, for example, I'm very angry all the time, and I sustain being angry all the time, and I just love it. What kind of spirit, what kind of magnetic fields do I'm generating? I'm calling all of those who are angry all the time. Each soul possesses within its own thought the unstoppable source of its own energies. Meaning, thought, you can generate thoughts all the time. There's no physical limitation of how many thoughts I can have and how badly I can sustain them, or how good can I sustain them. The source of what we put out is thought, and there's no limit to that. So if we are going to sustain our thoughts and we don't want trouble coming from the spirit world, we'd better have good thoughts. Now, each intelligence produces living currents that flow and are projected onto its energy halo, structuring the aura, meaning the aura that we have carry our thoughts. It has the signature of our thoughts. So what we're saying here in this last part, these last 2 slides, it really applies to everyone. However, for the medium, because they capture mental waves very easily, they have to be very, very, very careful about what they do, what they think, what they say, places they go, people who they are with, because the simplest change of thought could take them to a well-being situation in the last 30 minutes to I'm feeling depressed in the next 20. It's very intense how they acquire this unconditioned reflex coming from the mental waves of other spirits. Mental waves can be good or bad. Good mental waves, meaning good thought, will generate well-being. I'm going to feel good. Bad or negative mental waves, meaning I have bad thoughts, negative thoughts, it's going to generate disturbance. It's not going to be nice. So it's a choice. It's a choice. This is acquired reflex. It's not on my DNA receiving bad energy all the time. It's not because my heart pumps this way or that way that I receive good or bad energy. No, it's my preference. Conditioned psychic reflexes define our psychic, mental, spiritual preferences. So, we are at the end of second program here. We spoke about the medium today. We will continue on the next program speaking a little bit more about the medium and then other things. Again, if you haven't seen program number 1, I really encourage you to do it. And, there's a lot of interesting explanation there. We'll see you next time. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Luis, for being here with us. And I agree with you. This is not a sprint, it's a marathon where we little by little learn more and amazing explanations. So, Luis, just before we go, do you want to maybe give a final words, a prayer, or anything for our audience today?
Yeah, let's do a prayer. Let's concentrate on the image of Jesus, who is always bringing us good energies, our mentors and spirit guides who are always with us all the time, even if we don't perceive him. We want to thank him for being with us. Thank you, Jesus, for being part of our lives. Uh, we also pray for those who are going through difficult times, a lot of them under the influence of bad spirits. A lot of them do not understand what's going on. So, Jesus, please be with them at this time. Some people in prisons and hospitals, which are going through hard times and difficult situations, that they can be assisted with your mental waves, with your good, with the good spirits above. Thank you very much for this opportunity, dear Jesus, and stay with us. Thank you.
So be it. Bye, everyone. And Louise, we'll see you next time. Thanks,
Okay.
everyone.